Now back in Genesis, we're going to finish up with these last few things here. Go back to Genesis. It says in verse 21, so the Lord caused the man to fall in a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and closed up and placed with flesh, all right? So that word rib really means, it translates out, the word in the Greek is, in the Hebrew is sela, and it translates out really side. The side of a man, not really a rib of a man, okay? So the substance didn't come out really taken from the rib, the side of the man. Now this is the foreshadowing, what we see here of the church. I'm going to show you. Adam and Eve, God does what? Puts them to sleep. And out of Adam, out of the side of Adam, comes what? A woman. And that's the first marriage. Now we're going to look at the church. Okay, because now watch. Adam is the first Adam. What's Christ? What's another name for Christ? The second Adam. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15.
I'm really confused.
Okay, well, I'm going to show you right now.
Go to 2 Corinthians, you said?
Uh-huh. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, 22. Okay, well, I'm trying to say, right, he didn't come out of the rib, he came out of the side. The Hebrew translation, Selah, means that out of the side of man, Adam, Eve came out of her, out of him, okay? So, Adam and Eve, okay? Out of the woman, the wife, came from Adam, okay? So that's who came out of Adam. That was the first marriage, Adam and Eve. Adam was the first Adam. He didn't do it perfectly. Christ is also called the second Adam.
I didn't know that.
Okay, well, that's what we're going to read right now. The second Adam, 15:22. 15:22. This is, you'll start understanding this when I get through it. Starting in verse 22, for as in Adam all die, so in Christ all be made alive. Okay, but each in his own turn. Christ is the first fruits. Then when he comes, those who belong to him, then the end will come when he hands over the kingdom to God the Father, and he destroyed all dominion and authority. What did I say? 15:22. Now go to 15:45. So it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, the last Adam, a living spirit. The spiritual did not come first, but the natural, and after the spiritual. The first man was of the dust of the earth, the second man from heaven, and was the earthly man, so that those who are of the earth, and as is in the man from heaven, also those who are of heaven. So, okay, what he's saying is that what? Adam was
he was the first, he was natural.
Adam was the first man. He didn't do it perfectly. God created him. How was Adam created? Perfect. Right? He was created perfect, sinless.
Naturally created.
Right? The fall of man, so he didn't do it right. So now there's a fall of man. So now Christ is referred to, he comes just like the first Adam. Perfect. But he lives a sinless life. Adam didn't. Through Adam, we all died. So God comes and uses Christ as a man, the second Adam. Same thing. There's only two people created on earth. Well, three. Well, Eve, but Adam came alive without a sinful nature. Christ had no sin nature. We have a sin nature. The first Adam couldn't do it right. The second Adam did it right. So we see the first Adam and the second Adam. The first Adam was married to Eve. That's his wife. The second Adam, who's his wife? The church. Okay? So you see what I'm talking about? So now we're going to go through that. You kind of see what I'm saying here?
The first Adam disobeyed.
Right.
The second Adam never disobeyed.
Right, the first Adam
even though he was tempted.
The first Adam fell short, right?
Right. So the first Adam, out of the side came a woman. The first Adam was wounded out of the side. Go to John chapter 19:34. I know this is kind of confusing. Or maybe I'm not getting it.
Actually, it makes a lot of sense.
Does it?
Well, think of it. The first Adam, he fell, right?
The first Adam fell. He was great, perfect. Let's get it.
Disobedient.
Right. He was perfect.
And then the second, Jesus
Right.
was perfect. Just as Adam chose wrong the first time with the fruit of knowledge,
Right.
Christ was the second choice, the fruit of life.
Right. Exactly. Because
symbolic is the same as
right. So he does everything. Remember how he does? He does everything. Okay. So this time I'm going to come down as a man, Just like, I'll do like the first Adam, I'll call the second Adam, but I'm going to do it perfect. The first Adam couldn't do it perfect. Okay? The first Adam was created, Christ wasn't created. The man from heaven, he said, one was natural, Corinthians said, the one that came natural, there was one that came from the Spirit.
Yeah.
Okay? It's really interesting. The first Adam was created by the second Adam. See, it's all significant? Okay? The first Adam was married to Eve. That was his wife. Married from the beginning, out of the side. The second Adam, we know the church, right? Well, who's the bride? Who's the bride of the Christ? It's the church, right? So we see the first Adam, out of his side, he was wounded on his side for his wife. Look at the second Adam, John 19:34.
Oh,
That's
that's
really
really on
good.
the slide. Oh,
I didn't think about that.
Instead, one soldier pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water.
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew he got pierced in the side, but I didn't
Side,
know.
Adam,
I
side,
would have
and,
never connected.
and Adamic nature refers to the first Adam.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Someone says, if you're talking about your Adamic nature, that's
Right.
the first Adam.
Right.
And then it's
The first Adam. The first Adam. So what we're seeing, he's showing from the beginning. God had created the first marriage, right? And out of man, the first Adam, out of him, he brought his bride.
Right.
And out of Christ who died, the first Adam was what? He was pierced on his side. He was to sacrifice his life for that woman, that oneness. It's in the same way, the oneness. Remember how I said Adam knew, he understood that oneness with his wife?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now what happens to Christ? Same thing, Adam.
That's
And
how
we
we
become
have
that
the church.
oneness,
Right.
the exact same thing. We're the bone and flesh and flesh. See what I'm saying? See how the significance of from the beginning? So Adam and Eve is significant, same thing. So he does the same thing. And out of me, because my side was pierced for me, all of you are saved, and you are my bride. Right? Go
So
to...
his life flowed into the life of the church.
Right.
Adam's life was...
So the first one, out of him came Eve. The second out of him came the church. Go to Colossians chapter 1:24. Colossians 1:24. Did I say Colossians? Yeah. Colossians 1:24. Now I rejoice in what was suffered for you, and I will fill up my flesh, what is still lacking in regard to the Christ's affliction, for the sake of his body, which is the church. So out of his body, just like out of Adam's, came the church. Go to Revelation chapter 19.
What?
7 through 9. Let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory, for the wedding of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. Fine linen, bright and clean, was given to her to wear. All right? Fine linen stands for the righteous acts of the saints. So we see right there, who's the bride? So the second Adam comes, we see him, the second coming, right? And his bride comes with him. Is significant from the beginning. So Adam and Eve, right, is a foreshadowing of the church to come. Because remember, in the beginning, God created. Remember we talked about that? He already had a salvation plan from the beginning. Before the angels ever were. He had a salvation plan because he already knew this. So this was just like, he's having, hey, look at this. Let's create Adam and Eve. This was something unique about it. Already preordained. He already knew this. The perfectness of the garden that will future do this because of their sin. The center of the garden is these trees. And it's going to do this. And now this is going to be sanctuary. It goes on and on all the way to the end. And from the first two couples of the marriage, I will be married to my church. And out of him that comes the wife, out of me will come my bride. See the significance to that? All right? The second Adam becomes one with his bride and the church. So let's go to Ephesians chapter 5. We'll finish up with this one. Ephesians chapter 5, 31 and 32. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am not talking about Christ and but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So, see, he shows right there, it's the same thing. He uses the exact same thing. The man's to love the wife like Christ loved the church. Isn't that funny how all works the same thing? Adam, from the beginning, he was the bone of the bones, loved his wife, okay, like Christ loves the church.
He gave his life for his church.
See how it's all significant? So if we understand about Adam, if men understand about Adam in the beginning, okay, then we can understand what Ephesians is saying about when it says, you know, man is to love his wife. Well, we think what that means is a man, or in our fallen state.
Right.
Okay? And then you notice what he also, when he said, and he loves himself, and it doesn't say about the wife loving the husband back. You notice that right there. Okay? He says, and the wife must respect her husband. Okay? Why is that? It's not that the wife doesn't love her husband. That's not what you're saying. Why is that? Because who came out of who? It's my responsibility as a man. And she is to respect the man that she came out of. That's what, okay? See how it's significant? So all Scripture, all Ephesians we're talking about there, comes all the way back to Genesis. Isn't that funny? So what did we see? We seen Christ on the seventh. We see him from the beginning of the first chapter. We see him in chapter 2. He is what? The Sabbath. I am the Sabbath. We see there was a foreshadowing that he did the Sabbath day to the Jews. Then later on, for us to get a rest, the eternal Sabbath. Okay? I am the Sabbath. That's what he says. We see him as the Lord. The first time in chapter 2, he's mentioned the Lord. It was Elohim Yahweh, remember? A covenant God. It's the same equivalent word as Kyrios in the Greek word as for Jesus, as Lord. Then we see him, he's the guy, the same Jesus that created me in Genesis 1. Is the same one who planted the garden. So the point is that Jesus is chapter 1. Jesus is chapter 2. Jesus is chapter 3. Sometimes when we read Genesis, we're thinking, well, where's Jesus at? That's Jesus. You see, isn't that significant? And out of Adam that he created, Jesus created his church.